Welcome to my devlog. I'm TextGuy, and today's video is going to be a little devlog of GMTK Game Jam. For those who don't know what a Game Jam is, basically it's an event where developers are given the title to develop the game that fits the title in a limited amount of time and judged by the public and the organizer. And for those who participate in Game Jam, you'll probably acknowledge of the famous GMTK Game Jam that started last Saturday. It's a 2 days jam, which is very exciting, and it's my first time participating in a 2 days jam, because there are people that knew how to manage their game project, and plan to make the game step by step in time. And I'm a kind of people that won't ever schedule for a game project, and always end up rushing the progress last minute before the deadline. As a Mr. Procrastinate, I felt like a 2 days jam is more suitable for me. I remember the last game jam I participated was a 1 week jam, which I used most of the time to think the game mechanic, and started to develop the game 2 days before the deadline, so I believe that 2 days jam is probably more suitable for me. The GMTK's game jam was on Saturday, when people are usually free. Saturday is a holiday for most of the people around the world. Unfortunately, for me, Saturday means I have to take care of my sister's children, because the daycare are closed on weekend. As a younger brother, I have to take care of my sister's children on Saturday. The game jam starts on 8 PM UK time, and the title of the game jam is Out of Control. In my country, it's 3 AM in the morning, and also I have to take care of the children until my sister came back from work. So I spent more time on the first day to think the concept of the game, figuring out what is the meaning of Out of Control. Out of control. A bike without a brake is out of control. A rules that change constantly is out of control. A virus that lives host to host is out of control. The corona. There are many mechanics that fits the title. Because of that, it is also hard to think of a good concept, as there's too many possibilities. Let's list out some elements that this title can bring. First element I can think of is surprise. As it is out of control, it will be fun to have some randomness for the design, so sometime you could surprise the player with unexpected results. The second element that this title can bring is challenging. Maybe I can bring some uncontrollable game mechanics, which is easy to understand but hard to master. After I listed the elements, there's also weaknesses for it. Surprise with randomization is fun, but sometimes the bad luck could make the player stuck in the level. So it is important to make sure the randomness don't affect too much with the game progress, so that the player could always have a way to beat the game, even possessed by bad luck. For the second element, challenging, there's also weakness. In the title Out of Control, the challenging here means a game mechanic that is hard to control, like a bike without a brake. It might cause the player to feel like it is a bad control if the designs are not good, so I decided to throw away the second element. By listing out the elements, it reduces the range of possibilities so that I can focus on one specific direction of game design, which is randomness. With the idea, I suddenly recalled about the roguelike game, which has randomness as a design in it, but I felt like the randomness in roguelike doesn't fit well with the title Out of Control, so I'm thinking to randomize the actions of the characters and make it a turn-based game. With this idea, a board game popped up in my head, the TRPG, Dungeons and Dragons. The TRPG is a tabletop role-playing game. The idea of the game is the player role-playing a character and determine the action of the character based on its characterization. The players roll the dice to determine the result of the action. For example, if the player wants to block an attack, the player needs to roll the dice. If the dice value is lower than the character's strength, the player blocks the attack, and if the dice value is higher, the player fails to block the attack. Inspired by the TRPG, I designed the player to have a red attack dice of damage and green speed dice of move. The player has a 1d3 for the stats of the attack and speed dice, which mean 1 dice of 3-sided, and 2 for the stats of dice, which mean the player could roll up to 2 dices in each turn, with any combinations of attack dice and speed dice. My emotional mind tells me to make a blue dice of magic, which controls a unique magic that you will obtain on level ups, but my rational mind tells me not to do it in the 2 days jam. But I do make a cool reward system. When the player beats a level, The player gets to choose an upgrade of HP, attack or speed. Plus 5 HP which restore 5 HP points and increase the max HP by 5 HP point. Plus 1 attack or speed which increase the face of the upgraded dice. Plus 1 dice which gives you 1 extra dice roll for each turn. Plus 1 attack or speed dice which make the upgraded dice rolls 2 dice instead of 1. 11 PM on Saturday, I started to develop the game. I start by making a script representing the board and pathfinding system for the enemy AI. It is my first time making a pathfinding system. I have spent few hours to study the algorithm and implement it to my game. But there's a weird bug causing the Unity to crash every time I run the script. I've spent another 3 more hours trying to fix the script. I almost wanted to remake the game in the middle.
One eternity later.
Right before I was about to give up the game, I realized the reason of the crash is because I miswrote the fucking loop. If x is smaller or equal to 1, x plus plus, into if x is smaller or equal to x, x plus plus. Because of the infinite loop, it crashes Unity every time I run it, so I'm not able to see the bug in the debug console. Then after I change it, I realize it's working. At 7 in the morning of Sunday, I started drawing the sprite of the dice and some characters, and made the simple player movement and those simple looking UI, which allows the player to see the stats of the selected unit, and a small characters icon to switch off the UI, so that the player could have a better vision of the map, and introducing the first enemy to the game, the skeleton. The skeleton has 4 HP and the stats of 1d2 attack and 1d3 speed. The skeleton has 2 dice for each turn, and he or she will always try to approach the player by rolling the green dice. And once the player is in the attack range, it will change into attack mode and start rolling the red dice. I use a few more hours to implement the custom stats for the player and the enemy. After that, I started to design a few more characters for the game. The Goblin. The Goblin has 6 HP and has a higher attack of 1d3 and 2d3 speed, with dice roll up to a maximum value of 6. And the Goblin with mask. Because of the corona, actually it is supposed to be the Archer Goblin with range attack, but as the time flies, I decided to discard the concept and make it a Goblin boss instead, and it has 10 HP. What? You ask why the boss has so little HP? Because in my impression, Goblin is always a speedy and agile creature. But I do implement a new way of enemy's playstyle. The Goblin boss has 3 dice, an attack dice of 1d6 and the speed of 3d2, meaning that it will move at least 3 grid for each roll. The playstyle of the Goblin boss is, it will always spend its first and second dice chasing and attacking the player, and last dice to run away from the player if it is next to the player. I don't want to make it so tanky because the HP of the player will not restore when clearing a level, so if you don't upgrade the speed dice and has bad luck, then the Goblin boss attack will be inevitable. For the third enemy is the mini-boss Golem. It has a higher HP of 12 and a very huge attack of 3d3 with a maximum damage of 9 and a lower speed of 1d3, and it only has 1 dice. The Golem could finish you within a few attacks, but it could be beaten easily if you play correctly. So even though Golem is supposed to be a very tanky character, there is no point of making it too much HP. I also wanted to make a Necromancer skeleton boss that summons skeletons, but there is no point of making it, because it is fucking 10 PM already. But I do make the final boss, the Black Knight. with 26 HP, same speed with the Goblin Boss 3d2, and a maximum attack of 3d6, with up to a largest possible damage of 18, that could send you to the main menu with one hit. I used a few more hours to finish up the reward system, and I realized that my game doesn't have any sound effects yet. I made the theme music in speed under just 20 minutes, with the sense of pressing around in the boss car.
Bosca Koi.
In the last 30 minutes, I suddenly realized that I forgot to make the losing system, so I sent the player instantly to the main menu if the player's HP drops to 0. At the final stage, I finished the game and started to build it, but I just changed my laptop last month, and there's some location problem with Unity. I went on Google to look for the savior. Finally, I fixed the problem and submitted it to the GMTK Game Jam before the deadline. Let's try to download the game. Luckily, there's a late game jam that allowed us to submit it 30 minutes after the deadline. I finalized some minor bugs and wanted to test the whole game, but there's 30 hours of staying awake and more than 20 hours of game development, so I think that it is also important to be alive to see the feedback. I went straight to bed after I tested the first 2 levels.
The next day,
I played my game and realized that there's a bug causing the game to stop working at level 3.